Your 300 hitters hit guys like Jason Grilli. They hit great. They hit elite pitching.
Yeah.
They hit 1 and 2 starters and closers. So if you want a bunch of strikeout guys and guys that are like, hey, man, he's a great on base guy. Yeah, he's great on base against 3, 4, 5 and poop soup from the bullpen.
Yeah, go ahead. You introduce us here, Grilli.
Welcome back. Hump Day Wednesday. It's Mound visit. We got one of my best friends, and who better to have the first baseman, the best first baseman you could ever have on your team, the mayor, Sean Casey, across town. He's in the South Hills in Pittsburgh, and we got Sean on the show. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah, what's up, Grill? How you doing, bro? How you fellas doing? Grill, for anything for you, bro. You know what I mean? If you said you were somewhere and I had to go find you, I would do it. You know what I mean? So you said I had to come on the Mound visit, I'm ready.
Needed bail money, dude, so we haven't.
Hey, that's not too far off, you know what I mean?
I love it. This is a really special guest, and I think it's also very fitting. I was telling Grilli before we hopped on live here, but I was playing MLB The Show, and my creative player got called up to the show last night, and the voiceover that was talking about what it's like to get called up to the show was you, Sean Casey. So I was like, oh, no way, I'm gonna hear from him tomorrow too. So
yeah,
my fake major league dreams.
Yeah, this guy's got great analysis on my player that I just brought up from the minors. I love it.
Hey, at least you're in the game. I'm still trying to get on the game. My kids are like, if I can't hang out with them, in face to face, at least I can hang out with them virtually. They're always on the damn machine.
Dude, you know what's funny? You know what's funny with those games? I remember my last year in Boston was like whatever 2K07, 2K7, 2K6 or whatever, and I remember like my kids were really young, but I was like, you guys are gonna play this game and you're gonna find dad on it and you're gonna be me. You know, I was like trying to because I was playing for the Red Sox and no one cared. No one cared to play for the Tigers. You know, we're so young. So I was like, maybe they'll care on a video game, but turns out they never have cared. They're like 20-something years old now.
You're just
never cared.
Hey, he's got some studs for kids, man. And hopefully they're better than you and I were. Our kids, hopefully they're better carrying on and do even more, which, we set the bar pretty high, but hopefully they can overachieve and go for it, right?
That would be something, dude. Hey, listen, I was just down in Jacksonville because my son Jake plays for Kent State, so Kent State was playing Jacksonville this weekend, and it's so funny. You're just so much more nervous when you're watching your kids. Like, God, I remember playing in the World Series, Grill, in 2006. In front of millions of people, 60,000 people at Busch Stadium, and I'm cool as a cucumber. I'm watching my kid get his first at bat against Jacksonville Division I baseball, and I'm absolute train wreck.
I know. And now my dad laughs at me. He even says, he goes, now you know how it feels.
Is it because you don't have control over the situation, you think? And obviously you want them to do well.
I think so. I think it's just because when you're in it, you have control. It's obviously you doing what you need to do. But when you're watching somebody else do it, you just have no control over anything. You haven't put in any work. You haven't done anything. You're just relying on them doing their job. And I think the biggest thing too is like just wanting them to do well and enjoy themselves and have fun. I think that's the biggest thing, and not get so caught up in what their performance is. But you do love a double in the gap here and there. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
feels
there
good.
You go.
How much involvement, like, honestly, because I know it's hard, where gas pedal brake, being a dad, having a kid, playing in amateur sports. We see all these dads yelling and screaming, right? And you know it as well as I do. You got somebody yelling stuff at you during the game. That's not when you coach. And the approach of that is a terrible way. I mean, we all want our kids to do well, of course. We want to cheer them on. But, it's always something that's always talked about and debated. How do you go about it as a professional and as a dad?
Yeah, I err on the side of just trying to remember how hard it was. And I know Grill. I mean, the game's so freaking hard, and to hit a baseball, I tell my son all the time, like, you picked one of the hardest thing to do in the world is hit a baseball, and like it's It's a hard game. It's not supposed to be easy. You know, it's like life. Life's hard sometimes. It's not supposed to be easy. It's how you respond and how you react to it. And so for me, being in the stands, you know, I want to make sure that I'm not in the arena. You know, I think that you know I'm in the stands and I'm watching the guy in the arena. I want to make sure that you know, I'm being the best best role model I can be in the stands, where I'm like, hey, he loves baseball. He works hard, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. The results will be what they are. And, I think a big thing for me is just, hey, sit back, enjoy your kids. You know, there's no reason to yell at the umpires, no reason to yell at your kids on the field. Like, they're going to be as prepared as they need to be. And results aren't random, results revealed. The results they get will reveal how hard they work at the end of the day. And I have no control over that. My career is over, you know what I mean? And I got to be the best dad I can be and the best role model I can be. That's kind of how I look at it. I don't know, Grill. What do you think, brother? I mean, that's,
Yeah,
you
no.
know,
Some of these dads, their careers didn't go maybe as far as they wanted. Some dads, we know, they're frustrated and whatever. But I always say, listen, you coach before the game and you coach after the game. You don't coach during the game, meaning no different than an analogy. Hey, you don't study while you're taking a test, right?
right.
If your preparation hasn't been good, then you're trying to make up for it during the game. And as hard as it is, you can't. But mental stuff I could understand. I could get your head in the game to be yelled at. But a kid making a play, not making a throw. That's why there's an E column in the damn game. It's so hard.
Right. So hard. Exactly.
Yeah, Sean, I want to ask you too. I mean, take it back a little bit, talking about your career. It's an interesting question to ask, anyone. We asked Grill the same thing when we did our first episode with him. But when you look at kind of, when you knew that this was going to be the game for you and that this was something that you wanted to not only, continue to pursue at a high level, but for a career, when did you kind of know that you had something special?
You know what? I always knew, I had an eye-hand coordination that was special when I was younger, just playing ping pong and stuff. Like, it was just like a human wall, and I don't know, it was just something, it was definitely something there. But I'd say I didn't really know. I mean, listen, I always wanted to play in the big leagues. I always thought I would, like in this crazy way. But I was also the guy that was getting cut from every trial because I wasn't fast enough. And, I wasn't the kid that you scouted and like, that kid's going to play in the big leagues one day. But I kind of believed that the work I was going to put in, the effort I put in would eventually help my talent get to another level. And I think for me after my sophomore year in college at University of Richmond, I ended up going to the Cape Cod League that year. And Todd Helton was the big name, and Darren Erstad and a couple other big players. And I ended up winning. I ended up almost winning the batting title. I hit 340, drove in, led the league in RBIs with 40. And then that was when I was like, okay, if all these dudes are going to be the first round picks, like, I got a shot. Like,
Yeah.
I got a shot. I can play with these guys in the wood, all that stuff. And then my junior year, I won the NCAA Division I batting championship. And then I was like, man, I'm a good player. Like, I'm going to play pro ball somewhere. And then was a second round pick of the, Cleveland Indians, which I'm not a first rounder like Grill. He's a little more big time than me, but I was second round pick. And then, I was off to the races. And I think that was the biggest thing, is like keeping that work ethic, knowing what it takes to, knowing that it's going to take a lot of work to get to where I really want to go, and that's the big leagues and stuff. So, what a journey. And I think I really knew that Cape Cod League summer.
Hey, listen, I know your speed wasn't maybe the detriment to maybe for his first round pick and his second round pick, but I used to eat dinners and breakfast with this guy, and I don't know who ate faster, you or me. So you did have some speed when it
Dude,
comes
that's
to
saying something,
some.
Grill, because I've seen you eat. I've seen you eat, Grill, and it's scary.
Is it
Dude,
worse
it's
than me?
something
Because you've seen
about
me eat too.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it?
ridiculous.
Okay.
there's
All right.
something about the personalities that we have and a lot of our buddies have, and maybe that's why we made the big leagues. Like, there's not a lot of things we don't do fast. You know what I mean? Like, I look at, I still do. I try to slow down eating, and it's ridiculous how freaking fast I eat. And it's almost annoying. Like, can't believe. Like, I look around, everyone's on their third bite. I'm like, just crushed a 12-ounce ribeye with salad on the side and a sweet potato. And like 3 minutes, it's done.
Like a snake, dude, just
Yeah.
one bite, like Scooby Doo, man. Hey, if we're on the food topic now, I brought you a little treat because I know, you know,
Oh yeah, baby.
this is what I used to do with Sean Casey because he was a big reader. He still is a big reader. And the bananas was a thing that I used to get him locked in. I put on there like 2 for 3, 3 RBIs, whatever. Now I just put, hey, have a good Friday, bro.
There you go.
Oh, dude, this is a good one, guys. When I was grilled getting ready for the bullpen guys, they got nothing to do. They're like, yeah, we'll just hang out until the freaking 7th or 8th. I'm stressed to the gills at 6:45, getting ready to go out run my sprints. Having a panic attack. Getting ready to trying to obviously get my do my meditation before I go, get myself into the right place. Breathing techniques. As soon as I would go out to the door to get down to the dugout, Grill would be sitting there in his locker. And one day he just hands me a banana. He's like, "Here you go, bro." And I'm like, "What's this?" He's like, "It's what you're gonna hit tonight." It's like 2 for 4 bomb, like a couple ribbies. I'm like, "Oh, dude, thanks." So I ate it on the way down. It's like some good potassium too for cramps, you
No,
know.
no,
Break it
like,
down. And I swear to God, I think that night I went 2 for 4 with a bomb and 2 ribbies.
Okay.
So for the next like 2 months, I'm like, "Bro, give me a nanner."
Crushing bananas.
but no, it came
That's
from an
awesome.
article. I was actually taking a dump and and they have all the magazines in there. They got every periodical you could want and imagine in the subscriptions that we had. And I think it was like a Maxim magazine or something. I'm flipping through, and it said about something about concentration. So I felt like Casey needed to just concentrate a little bit more, and something that it clicked, man. It's just stupid things that we do to trick ourselves and trick our minds, right? Casey get locked.
I mean, yeah, anything it takes. It's so funny. People talk about baseball players being superstitious. It's true because you're just looking for. It's such a long year. 162 games and
Yeah.
day in and
Yeah.
day out. You're really looking for any edge. Or anything mentally that kind of makes it fun. And Grill and I with those bananas and the he was like my genie. He was my psychic. It was kind of fun, and we had a good time with that. So, you're always looking for stuff like that during the year.
Hey, Grill,
Well,
does Sean know the ways of the 3 Ps that you talked about? Did he know that you were going through that process, the 3 Ps?
oh yeah, my thing was the 3 Ps. I peed, pooped, and puked. I went out the bullpen, especially in Pittsburgh here when I was shoving in the 8th and 9th inning of the high stress innings, And so I used to thank God we had Tony Palatucci as a good chef here because I told him I always tease him he was the best chef in the big leagues. I got to taste his meals a couple times, going down and coming back up.
Grill. Did that happen when the phone rang in the pen? Is that when you started
No,
to?
so the 5th inning I would stretch, kind of get your body moving. 6th inning, right after that I take a pee, pooped in the 7th, and then right before the 8th kicked in, and I knew it. Some of the guys would be like looking at me, and I'd be like, "It's gonna be a good night." If I had a good, your
Like you puked before every outing.
yeah, it was shutting down my digestive
Wow.
system. Too much energy because I like to eat, and I would eat. Bullpen guys, we eat. So you can't have all that in your belly.
You got,
Did it
dude.
just
It's
come
the
up
most
naturally, or what?
Yeah, no, there was no.
You didn't
It
pull
just
trigger or anything like that? You didn't have to.
I'm an adrenaline guy. People knew that. I just my adrenaline was kicking, and when you wait all day, I mean, shoot, 1 o'clock you get to the ballpark. I don't get to pitch till 9, 10 o'clock at
Right.
night. A
Sean,
lot of
Sean, is there
anticipation.
like a distinct difference that you could tell being around closers throughout your career that like, yeah, dude, that guy's definitely a closer.
They're
Like
just sick in the
mentally or
head. Yeah. I think to be a closer, you gotta be a little sick in the head, and then Grilly's definitely sick in the head, 100%. You know what I mean? And like, because there's just a, I think just even to be the bridge guy, just the late inning bullpen guys, those guys are just, they're just a little different. You know what I mean? You almost have to be because you have to have that mentality. Like like Grilly and those guys had the Shark Tank or whatever they had in Pittsburgh. Like it's kind of that mentality, like that shark mentality of like, dude, you got to go and you got to go look for blood and go get somebody because that closer, usually the closers have the stuff Grilly had. Mid to upper 90s heater, wipeout slider. Guys could two pitch mix you, but they're coming for you. They're not shying away from contact. They're filling up the zone. I mean, that's a different mentality. The aggressive mentality to attack. You know what I mean? That's a different breed. Not everybody's
Yeah.
like that. You'll see a lot of guys dancing, and the guys that dance in the zone, you know, me as a hitter, if you're dancing in the zone, I feel like I got you, because if you're nibbling, I'm gonna get you. Like you're sending me a message to say, dude, I don't really want to come in the zone. I feel like you might get me. And you know, a guy like Grilli, he's coming at you in the zone, or these great closers, you know, that we see out in this game, the Class A's and you know, some of the best guys. You know, the Diaz's. These guys aren't shying away from contact. They're got good movement in the zone. They're throwing the ball with conviction. And so, yeah, man, I think to be a closer in the big leagues, you got to be a little squirrely, and you have to have that mentality like you're coming to get you. You know, you're coming to get somebody. Would you say that's right, Grill? I know you had that mentality.
Absolutely. You know, and I look at some of these guys, like you mentioned Diaz with the Mets. That guy's gotten so much better. His stuff didn't really change, but like you said, the mentality, and for him to come in there with the famous song, right? This trumpet song that he's got
Yes,
now, and
sir.
getting the crowd. You talk
Narcos.
about level of confidence, right? To come in there and have that switch flick on. You got to be different. And you know, I always felt the pressure. Maybe why I threw up is because I go, all my teammates, I don't want to go in there and have them hate me that if we're winning a game, blow the lead with all the hard work that they did to get us to that point, and then I make a bad pitch and ruin the game. You know, it happens from time to time. Nobody's perfect, but that you're expected to do the job if you're in that role.
Hey, Grill, really quick. What was the difference? Because I know this is a big thing. Like, you know, guys like, hey, bullpen guys love their roles.
Yeah.
So, like, what was the difference between, you know, I've seen a lot of guys that were good seventh, eighth inning guys. You put them in the closer role, they freaking take a total dump on themselves. They just blow up.
Yeah.
You know
You
what I
see
mean?
it the other way around too.
Yeah, oh yeah. And you take a guy in the closer role, put him in the setup role, they can't do it. So, like, what is the difference? Like, you know, and here's the other thing. This drives me crazy when I hear a few guys at MLB Network say, some of the analysts that have never played the game will say, well, you know, it's just 3 outs. It's no big deal. It's just 3 outs. What's the difference between the 3 outs in the seventh and the eighth and the ninth? What is the difference, bro? Is it tougher?
Well, here's what I said. I think the eighth inning, truthfully, is the hardest inning, and here's why. You got to face 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. The heart of the order, the all stars of the league, are usually coming up that inning, right? 95% of the time, if you watch the way it turns over. You know, the mentality, even why I think I was a good closer in the story for me was became a middle reliever. I had to come in the middle of the game with guys and inherited runners in the middle of the game and still face those 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4s, 3, 4, 5s hitters. And then I was like, well, I'm just doing it with a clean inning. Now I can pitch around a guy if I needed to and go attack another guy. So I think my development as a pitcher, I learned from being a starter to a middle reliever. And I talked to Kenny Rogers, who actually was a relief pitcher and became a better starter. He said it's amazing how a reliever made him a better starter. And I said, well, I felt like being a starter made me a better reliever. A middle reliever made me a better setup guy and closer because I was put in these scenarios that I had to figure out how to get out the puzzle. And when your career is in jeopardy, I never had a multi-year contract till later in my career, or just even the confidence to say, hey, Case, you're in first base, you're in that lineup every day. I think that confidence to know your role and to do your job and what's asked of you, it's always easier. So I think if guys can get that confidence of a team or a manager to say, hey, I'm taking care of you, and this is what I expect you to do, it's easier to go in there and start attacking, you know, mentally as well as your natural ability. Let it shine, you know.
It's really interesting, and we actually have a couple of questions for you, Casey, if
From our viewers.
if that's cool with you. Yeah, from some of our listeners. One of the first ones is this, talking about your early playing career, and he says, so you came into the majors with the Indians, and soon after you went to the Reds. At the time, the Reds had recently acquired Ken Griffey Jr. So, as a young player making strides in the league, what did you learn, if anything, from the future Hall of Famer?
Well, this guy's one of the strongest guys ever. I mean, you know, it's so funny. A couple things there. I mean, there's so much to unpack here because, you know, Junior was traded to us. I came up and I was traded to the Reds in '98. Junior came over in 2000, so I was there a couple years before he came.
Okay.
And I lockered next to Griff, so I really got a chance to know him.
Oh, that's cool.
Great guy. You know, just was a fun-loving guy. But he was Michael Jordan when he got traded to us. He was 29, 30 years old when he got traded to us, who was already the best player in the game. There were so many different things. I remember I learned how strong he was one time. I was going to the training room, and he was coming out of the training room, and I was going in, and for some reason we start wrestling in the hallway, like just me and him one-on-one. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I was like, I got this guy. And, I come in, and Griff comes in, and he grabs me with and he used to pressure point everybody. Any pressure point in the body, dude, he could put you down like Spock, like the Vulcan death grip. You're like, the Griffey death grip. You're like, oh my God. You're like, it didn't matter if you were freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger. Griff could hit you with the Griffey death grip, and you'd be like, oh my God, I'm going down, and you would. And so we start wrestling one day in the hallway outside the training room, and Griff hits me with 2 fingers like this. He jacks them under my ribs, and I'm like, oh, it's like it's paralyzing. But not only does he hit me with air, he picks me up off the ground like I'm a 6-year-old little kid.
Oh, wow.
And he, with 2 fingers, and at the time I'm 235, and he pins me against the wall, and it was some of the worst pain I've ever been in. I was like, he's like, we done? I'm like, oh my God. I was like, not only are we done, and that's when I realized how strong this guy is. Like, this guy's at a different level, core-wise, strength-wise. That's why when he hits the ball to left center, dead center, it goes like we've never seen in the game. So that was the first lesson I learned from Griff. Don't ever wrestle Griff. He'll put you in the Griffey deathlock, and it's real. The second thing was the guy was an RBI machine, and I remember having a conversation with him one time, and I said, dude, how do you drive in like 130 and 140? Like, they're different levels. Because obviously there's some guys that hit 40 homers that are driving in 100. This guy's hitting 40 homers, driving in 140, 130, 150, right? And I said, how do you do it? He's like, you got to make sure you get the guy in from third with, just ground out. Like, sometimes I just got it. You got to do what you got to do to get the ribby. So at times I'm just hitting the ground ball the right side, making sure that guy comes in. And then as I watched him play, I'm like, man, look at this guy. He's a master at like getting that guy in from third. And so, there's just so many different things. One other story, he would go out early by himself. He wasn't a big weight room guy. And obviously he was just such a strong dude. You know what I mean? He would go out by himself though early sometimes. And he would play like if I went out early, I'm working on my swing, going to left center, right center, trying. He would go out and do that with home run derby. He'd be out there going left. He was just trying to hit homers, left field, left center, dead center, right field. And he would do it for like 30 minutes. And I'm like, wow, that's how you end up becoming one of the greatest power hitters of all time. He literally worked on his power game, trying to just drive the ball out of the park. That was what he did. So learned so much from Griff, man. He was, a great teammate, played with him for 6 years. And, like I said, he was Michael Jordan of baseball when he came to us.
Yeah.
The Vulcan grip.
That's awesome. It's a good segue into the next question that we had. Speaking of power, because you played with another prolific power hitter in the game, and that's Adam Dunn. One of our questions here is, and obviously this is something that's come into baseball in the last, however many years, but you talk about the 3 true outcomes. It seems like that was almost Adam Dunn's game. He was walking, he was striking out, but then he was hitting bombs too. So the question is, how did that, can you give us an insider's perspective on watching Dunn's at bats? How did that affect the Reds lineup and the clubhouse? And then how did the game of baseball evolve from that?
Well, there's a couple things here to unpack because, listen, one thing that will drive me crazy, doesn't drive me crazy, it drives me crazy because I love him like a brother. When Adam Dunn first came up, this guy was an incredible hitter. He was hitting like 370 when they called him up from AAA. And I remember his first home run, I believe, was in Florida. And Grilli, dude, that you going to left center in Florida, like that center, left center, you gotta hit it. And Dunner, his first homer ever was a bullet to left center, like way up. I mean, it was up over the stands, and it was crushed. And I'm like, wow, this guy could, and he was really a left center guy when he first came up. And obviously, I'm not blaming Jim Lefevre, but maybe I am a little bit. He was our hitting coach in 2002, and sometimes you got to be careful as a coach and as a young player because these coaches will get a hold of you and try to make you what they think you should be as opposed to what you really are. And Dunner was a great hitter when he first came up, and Lefevre was like, we want you to pull home runs. And I think Dunner, being such a young guy, was just a very coachable dude. He was like, all right, that sounds good. And for some reason, eventually he lost that left center gap. And that's when he started to become the 3 true outcome guy.
Interesting.
Home runs, 40 homers, 100 RBIs, 180 strikeouts, 200 strikeouts. And then he would hit 200, 210. I'm telling you right now, I had him on my podcast too. He was my first guest ever on my podcast. It still bothers him because he knows that's true. And he's like, Case, you know how good of a hitter I was. He goes, I don't know what happened. I just lost that opposite field way. Because as a hitter too, if you can go to left center, what kids don't realize, if you just want to get in there and pull home runs, you're going to be in trouble eventually. Because if you can go the opposite field gap, it opens up the pull side for you, right?
Yep.
Because it gets your vision out over the plate. You're trying to get your arms extended as a hitter. So when I look back at Dunner, this guy should be in Cooperstown. I mean, he's 32 home runs, I believe, from 500. He retired when he was 34, 35. He was still young. He should have, like I said, he should have put the ball in play way more than he did. And I'm not saying anything he wouldn't tell you because this guy could hit. So, for me, watching the evolution of him sometimes drives me crazy because I want to tell people this guy was such a better hitter than he ended up being, in the big leagues. Obviously, he was still one of the greatest power hitters of all time. But I'm talking about as an average hitter, this guy should have been a 40 double, 40 home run guy.
I feel like you hear that a lot where there's hitting coaches that try to change swings that are working. Why is that? Why is that a thing? Is it ego?
Same thing in with pitching. I was AAA my first year as 20 years old, and I had a pitching coach, Joe Horland was actually our pitching coach, and he was a good guy, great guy, good coach. But he's like, who you need to pitch like? And I'm like, who? He's like, Kerry Wood. I go, but I'm not Kerry Wood. I put I didn't get drafted to be Kerry Wood. I was a sinker ball pitcher coming up. I said, and Kerry Wood had, nasty stuff. And I go, yeah, I would love to be like Kerry Wood, but I'm not him. So like you said, to your point, Case, and having guys like Casey who will pump you up. This is why I'm friends with this guy. He'll always have the best of the best to say to you. Even if you're on his opposing team, how can you not love the mayor? Look at the accolades behind you, bro. It's so cool. Going over his house. He's a storybook guy, one of the best friends that I could ever have in this game. And it's just so fun having you on here, man.
Yeah, what's funny, bro, is when we I'll never forget this, man. I'm so grateful for this girl. And I think this was started off our friendship when I first got traded to the Tigers in 2006. Hey, listen, it's my 9th year in the big leagues, but I'm you're uneasy when you get traded in the middle of the deadline. You're going to a new club. These guys are in first place. I don't really know anybody. I've played against these guys my whole life. I know them as peers, but I don't really know them. And when I was at my locker, the first person to come up and say hi to me was Grilli. And I remember him shaking my hand and obviously knew who Grill was. And he was like, man, I've always wanted to play with you. I'm so excited that we get a chance to play together. And bam, instant friendship. So, I appreciate that. I always tell my kids and anyone out there that's listening, we as human beings love 2 things. We love to be recognized, and the sweetest sound we can hear is our name. So I always say, recognize people, bring that energy, and say their name. Get to know people's names. And like I said, Grill coming up to me that first probably 5 minutes I was in the clubhouse really settled me in to be like, okay, at least I know this dude. I don't even know him, but I was like, seems like a good dude,
Yeah,
so I appreciate that, Grill. Appreciate that forever.
I was like, you're a legend before you came to us, and we had a good team, and you made us better, man. It was that year was the only year I've been to the World Series, and we had a great team. Unfortunately, we had too many days off in between. That killed our momentum. But,
Yeah.
we were definitely.
Do you still think, Grill, it still bothers me. I mean, not bothers me because I'm a guy that says you can't, live in the past. But, like, the one thing I'm like, do you still think about that? Because I'm like, we were so much better. I know the Cardinals won or whatever. We were so much better, I thought, than they were, dude.
Yeah, I believe. And I go, if you're on Sportsbook and all these betting things, the following year, the Red Sox played the Rockies. You remember how hot the Rockies were?
Yep.
In 2007, they went to the World Series. Same thing with us. We had 8 days off. You talk about icing a team. We came in and we were supposed to beat 1 out of 3 a series against Kansas City. And the pressure, like, oh, yeah, just pack your bags in case we don't win. 1 out of 3. We were supposed to win the division. We got swept by Kansas City, right? And then we had to go play the Yankees. Leland gave us this unbelievable speech. Well, we got to play them anyways.
Dude, Vince Lombardi speech.
Yeah,
Vince Lombardi-esque
it
speech.
was. I wish I had it on tape, man.
Oh my God,
So
incredible.
Grilli's on record. Grilli's on record saying that Leland was his favorite coach.
No.
I'm saying that. Now, so Sean, can you say the same thing?
Intimidated by him. Casey was so intimidated. He's like, Grill, I'm trying to say hi to Leland. I go, I know. He doesn't say hi very much. He's just.
Leland was so locked in, and he just cared about a couple Marlboros, spikes on, head down. Let's win a ball game, do your job, and let's go. For me, Leland was probably my favorite manager that I ever played with. Listen. He expected a lot out of you. He wanted you to show up, be on time, and work hard and get the job done. And and there was times I didn't play at times because I wasn't getting the job done, and he would call me and be like, "Hey man, I got to play so and so because you're not getting the job done." I remember my last game with the Tigers. I had a good year. I hit a close to 300, but I wasn't hitting for a lot of power. I only had 4 home runs. Remember, they called me in his office, him, Dave Dombrowski, the last day of the year, and he was like, "Case," he's like, "we loved having you here." And I said, "Hey, dude, loved having you here." I was like, "Oh, that's not good what they say. You loved having you here." He's like, "We loved having you here. You're a great player. We appreciate everything you've done, but we got to go get some more power. Next year we're going to have to go get another first baseman, so we're probably not going to sign you back." I was like, "Dude, thank you so much for being honest with me, bringing me in and saying that to me. That's incredible." Well, they went up and got a guy named Miguel Cabrera, and that turned out pretty good for the Tigers.
Yeah.
I guess you can't be mad at that. You can't be too mad at that. That's another feat.
Well, at least on the trivia question, who was the first baseman before Miguel Cabrera had one of the greatest careers ever with the Detroit Tigers? I was.
He Wally pipped you.
Yeah, big time, dude. I Wally pipped myself.
Case, you had a hell of a career yourself, though. So don't. I mean, I was looking at that Baseball Reference page the other day. I think a lot of people forget how good of a hitter you really were. I mean, just to finish off here, and I'm sure people have asked you this before, but was hitting 300? Was that something that you took pride in? Because we talked about it a little bit with the whole 3 true outcome thing and the way the game has progressed. But I mean, it seems like it's almost sort of a lost art. I'm a Mets fan, so I love watching Jeff McNeil, and he's got that kind of slap the ball around, hit for a high average. Was that something that you took pride in when you played?
You know what? Always. Like hitting 300 for me. And you know what drives me crazy is people will say, "Oh, the average doesn't matter, this and that." I'm like, okay, go watch every team that wins the World Series. They got a bunch of 300. Because why? Yep. Your 300 hitters hit guys like Jason Grilli. They hit great. They hit elite pitching.
Yeah.
They hit 1 and 2 starters and closers. So if you want a bunch of strikeout guys and guys that are like, "Hey, man, he's a great on-base guy." Yeah, he's great on base against 3, 4, 5 and poop soup from the bullpen. But what come freaking playoff time, your 300 hitters are the guys that hit the good pitching at the end of the day. So for me, like, that was always a big deal for me. Even my last year in Boston, I went to Boston. It was the first year I came off the bench, and I must admit I was nervous because my career average was at 301 my whole career as a starter. And, coming off the bench is one of the hardest things. So I'm like, if I throw a 240 out there this year and I'm a career 299 hitter at the end of this year, I'll kill somebody. Like, I literally will kill. And so that year, and that year I end up hitting 322 and end up being a 302 career hitter. But, yeah, that meant a lot to me. And you know what's funny? For all the people that say, average, doesn't matter, you know who it matters to? The players. There's not a guy out there that's playing in the big leagues that loves hitting 230, 240, because it just shows what you're doing day in and day out. Your consistency. Are you putting together good at bats? Are you hitting good pitching? Are you doing it day in and day out? And that average number, that shows me who you are over 6 months. So if you're a 230 guy and you're like, "Hey, I hit a bunch of home runs," when did you hit them? Did you make it 8? Was it 8-1 in the 9th and you made it 8-2, 8-3? Like, or did you like I said, like in the 9th inning, you didn't want to see a guy like me. You didn't want to see a guy like Tony Gwynn. You didn't want to see a guy like Chipper Jones. These guys that were great average hitters. You don't want to see Jeff McNeil in the 9th. You don't want to see him. You know he's going to put together good at bat. You know he's going to put the ball and play hard. So, I talk about it passionately because it does drive me crazy when people be like, "Well, average." It's like when people say RBIs don't matter. It's a team thing. I'm like, bullshit. At the end of the day, Grilli knows There's a reason guys are closers and guys aren't. The guys that can take their heartbeat and lower it a little bit, they're closers. The guys that in RBI situations that can get their heartbeat a little lower, they drive in 120, 130. There's a ton of guys with RBI situations that don't drive and run. So, I think you have to be in the game to understand that. And I'm sure Grilli would say too, like when they say wins is a stat that doesn't matter. I don't know about that either, man. I think when you toe the slab and you want to get out there 6-7 innings, you're trying to get a W for your team at the end of the day. That means you went 6 innings. That means you gave up probably 3 or less runs, and it was a great start for your team. Like I said, those are numbers for me that sometimes get overlooked in the day and age of the analytics. And to players that really played the game, those numbers are important.
And I agree with you, Kate. I'm hoping that some of these changes, because I know we got so data oriented, and the Theo Epstein, he's even quoted saying, "I ruined the game in some respect." With some of the changes, the shift, I think coming out, I think we're going to see averages on the rise, and guys might stop trying to hit a home run because, hey, if I'm pulling into the shift, I know that's something that's mentally as a player. So even as a pitcher, I always said, if a guy hits me up the middle and gets a base hit, credit to you. If my shortstop, who's supposed to be one of the super athletic guys on my team, can't dive up the middle and make that play or stop it from being, an RBI situation or whatever, then tip my cap. Sometimes as a player, respectfully to a hitter, you've got me. And sometimes as a hitter, hey, you got me. So I think that the game, I'm hoping that the game with some of these things, it'll come back to the brand of baseball that you and I are so passionate about. It's not ours anymore, of course.
Yeah.
But some of these things that are instrumental on talking about, it's worth talking about and debating, of course.
Well, dude, I also think, I really do think the changes that they're making are going to be great for baseball. They studied it over 8,000 innings in the minor leagues, and the game's quicker. There's more balls in play, less strikeouts because of the clock. And I would say, hey, would you love the NFL if you had 3 minutes to call a play? No, you'd be like, what the hell's going on here? This guy's got 3 minutes to call a play. Would you love the NBA if it went back to freaking no 3-point line and no 24-second clock? No, it suck. It's a terrible product. I think the pitch clock is going to be something that, for you, Grill, you get in the box. And I don't think, this is something I think of as a hitter. You get in the box and you don't have your slider that night. And that guy keeps putting down slider. And you're like, no, but guess what? That clock's at 13. You got to deliver a pitch. You might deliver the slider that you don't want that night, and you're not on the same page as the catcher, and that's a hanging slider for me that I could hit out of the park for. You're not going to have all that time to shake, hey, come on out and talk to me. No, bro, You got to deliver it. And now the hitter goes, thank God they couldn't get on the same page. He's throwing his third pitch tonight. He doesn't want to throw that changeup, and he's going to leave it up, and I'm going to freaking love it.
Hey, Grill, how much more of an advantage can hitters have at this point?
I argue the other way. Really?
I don't know about it. I think the pitchers right now.
230 nowadays, 220. What else do you guys need? Seriously.
I think the hitters need all the help they can get right now, to be honest.
That's why they changed the rules.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, we could, like I said, we could sit and talk all day. I know.
Why can't we?
Well,
I know.
I know, right? Trust me, I wish we could. But Sean, you've been more than generous with
awesome,
your time.
Man.
We really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
brother.
No, this is incredible, and I hope you guys dominate with this podcast. Grill's the right guy. You guys are awesome too. Just in case, I appreciate you guys. Hey, just in case, let's go, baby.
Whoa.
I love that.
Man.
Just in case Grill is on.
Okay. Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. Love it being on here, and maybe we'll do part 2 down the road.
Hey, I'll drop them off here later today. We'll see you.
Yeah, come on over, Grill. Bring those over for lunch, baby.
We'll have to do a part 2, absolutely. And maybe we'll do a part 2 in person, so who knows. But again, thank you, Sean. We appreciate it so much.
Thanks, guys.
Love you, bro.
Yeah.
Love you, man.
Bye, guys.
See you, man.